Fen Research just dropped a bombshell of a blog post about their plan to rework the combat professions. This post outlines their plans, which are very big and very different. In this video, I'm going to walk you through everything that's changing, and I'll be explaining all of it as well, to the best of my ability at least, so that you can be as prepared as possible for this massive update, which is coming very soon. If you want to read the blog post yourself, I have also included it in a link in the description. If you are interested in specific parts of the rework, there are also timestamps and chapters on this video. Okay, let's dive in. Fen starts off the post by explaining that their original plan to rework the combat professions into a combat level and obelisk levels had a few problems. The largest problem they mention is that they felt their original plan was very overcomplicated compared to the current combat system we have in-game. They mention 3 more problems, which basically come down to: the original plan would force players to perform mental gymnastics to figure out whether or not they would be strong enough to fight a given enemy. Passive combat training methods would have to be split between passives, which would raise your combat level, and passives, which would raise your obelisk level. And the original problem of feeling like you would lose progress when moving to the next episode not being solved, since you could not take your obelisk levels with you to the next episode. Fortunately for us, they claim to have found a solution to all of these problems and are making very good progress towards a release for the combat rework. They specifically mention they are, quote, hoping to launch it very soon. How soon is very soon? Well, only Fen knows, but I imagine it's within a month's time. Fingers crossed. So, what is Fen's new plan? Rather than creating arbitrary obelisk levels per episode to mask the existence of combat professions per episode, they're going to merge the combat professions. Yes, literally merge them. Move over Guard Scout, Mind Fighter, Watch Person, and I guess you too, Shield Bearer, even though you never really existed? We're getting a brand new profession in their place, called Combat. Big surprise, I know. This profession won't just be going to level 500 though. It'll be the sum of all current combat professions. This means that on launch, it'll go to level 2000, and with every new episode added to the game, the maximum combat level will increase by 500. The time it takes to reach level 2000 will be the same as the time it takes to reach level 500 4 times over, so no current progress will be lost. So why didn't they just do this in the first place, I hear you ask? Well, that's because Fen hadn't thought of what they're calling striping. The combat profession will be taking you through every single enemy in the game, one by one, in sequential order, or a stripe if you will. This means you will first be fighting the first skin for every single enemy in Hopeport, and then you'll be moving on to the Hope Forest to fight the first skin for every enemy there, and so on through every episode. Once you have trained to outlevel every base variant of every enemy in every episode, you will wrap back around and fight the second skin variant of every enemy in every episode again, sequentially. If we then also take the Mine of Mantabon in consideration, the striping changes as follows. As you can see, the variants of the enemies for episode 3 are inserted into the stripe at the correct positions for you to have to run through them in order. This means that when Stonewall Hill releases, for example, its enemies will be inserted per tier after the Chronopolis enemies. Of course, this generic approach presents some problems when we look at how it would work for someone who isn't starting from combat level 0 when a new episode is launched. To combat this, Fen is introducing personalized striping. Without personalized striping, Fen says 2 problems would arise when a new episode is released. First, you might have already surpassed the combat level of a certain enemy, and thus would never get to fight them, and you might have to fight certain enemies you have already surpassed in existing episodes, again, because these enemies would increase in level due to the stripe increasing in length. In order to ensure that this doesn't happen, Fen is planning to personalize the stripe for all of us, by never inserting new enemies into the stripe at a level you have already passed. Instead, they'll be inserted just ahead of your current combat level. On top of this, no enemy which you have already surpassed will increase their level. This means that you won't suddenly have to fight a certain enemy again. If we assume only Hopeport and Hope Forest exist for a second, and your position on the stripe is marked by the white dashed line, the stripe would look like this initially. Then, when the Mine of Mantaban is hypothetically launched, your personalized stripe would look like this. As you can see, the variants of the new episode's enemies are inserted right ahead of you, so you can fight the new enemies right away. This also has the added benefit that you get to spend more time in the new episode, which you would likely want to do anyway, since it would be the most recent content added to the game, which you would be most likely wanting to explore. All in all, I believe this system to be very elegant, and I think it will be a very clean way to introduce new episodes without disrupting our progress in the new combat profession. Bosses during quests will work a little differently though. Their level will always be an exact number of levels above the level of the weakest enemy in a given episode. This means that by extent, boss levels are also personalized for all of us. Fen says they're doing this so that no matter the way our personalized combat stripe looks, the boss fights will always be ahead of our current combat level by an intended amount. But what about personalized striping if you're a free-to-play player? Well, Fen has also thought of this. As currently only the first 2 episodes are free-to-play, your personalized striping will look exactly like the first example. Then, when you buy a premium pass for the first time, all premium pass episodes will have their enemies inserted into your stripe via the same mechanics as when a new episode is released. This ensures that no premium enemies are missed and that you won't have to revisit any free-to-play enemies you have already surpassed. If your premium pass ever runs out, your stripe reverts back to the free-to-play stripe. But your personalized premium stripe is remembered by the game. If you then end up renewing your premium pass, your stripe will revert to its premium version. Because the maximum combat level will be 1000 for free-to-play players, that being 500 levels for Hopeport and Hope Forest combined, you won't be able to level past that level as a free-to-play player. If you are already past combat level 1000 when your premium pass expires, you will be unable to level up your combat profession any further until you renew your pass. One small detail Fen also included is that the combat profession will be hard capped at level 50 if you have not yet chosen a faction during the main quest in Hope Forest. Of course, these radical changes to the combat profession system also have large ramifications for the weapons and armor we all use. The first major change which is coming is that episodic equipment will no longer exist. All gear will be usable in every episode. This means that gear will no longer need to be attuned at an obelisk before it's usable in that obelisk respective episode. Rare tier equipment can still be infused to create epic tier equipment though, so that's nice. All existing equipment will be divided into 2 categories. There will be so-called combat dropped equipment and crafted equipment. The former will only be obtainable as drops from enemies in combat, as the name implies, and the latter will be obtained through crafting equipment yourself. Any equipment which you currently own, which is tuned, will be converted to combat dropped equipment when the update is released. Any untuned equipment will become crafted equipment. Speaking of crafting, a few things will be changing for crafted equipment specifically. Currently, the level of the equipment you can craft is equal to the level you are in the respective crafting profession for that equipment. Because the maximum level for combat equipment will become 2500 once Stonewall Hill releases, the level of the equipment you'll be able to craft will be your level in the respective crafting profession multiplied by 5. So when you are level 50, you'll be able to craft gear up to level 250, for example. And at level 500, you can craft equipment up to level 2500. The keen among you might immediately be wondering about what will happen when the maximum combat level goes beyond 2500 once episode 6 releases. Fen says they have, quote, a plan for how you will craft weapons for episode 6 and beyond, which will be revealed when we launch episode 6. This plan will not devalue your Mind of Mantaban crafting professions. They haven't elaborated on what exactly this plan will be, so we'll have to wait and see. But my guess is that we'll be getting additional crafting methods in later episodes. Your existing equipment will scale to match the new combat level scale using the following equation: x equals y plus a minus b in parentheses, where x represents the new level for the item, y represents the old level for the item, a represents your post-rework combat level, and b represents the highest of your pre-rework combat profession levels. So for example, if your highest combat profession was previously level 150, and you're now level 350 combat after the rework, then your item, which was level 100 before the rework, will now be a level 300 item, as per the equation on screen. One final change for crafted gear is their monetary value. Fen has carefully designed all of the professions to award or cost you gold relative to your level in any given profession. Because the level of gear you'll be able to craft will be multiplied by 5, the price of crafted equipment will be rebalanced. There has been no mention of whether crafted equipment will be worth more or less than combat dropped equipment, but it has been stated that the two will have different values and a unique icon, so they're easily distinguishable from one another when player-to-player trading makes it into the game. Obelisks will also be changing in their function, since gear will no longer need to be attuned to an episode. Instead, they'll be taking over the Enchantress's current role. Tools used in the various professions will become enchantable at the respective episode's obelisk. So for example, your fishing spear or foraging trowel will be enchantable at the Hopeport obelisk, whereas your pickaxe will need to be enchanted at the Mine of Mantaban obelisk. Hopeport's most infamous scare, the Enchantress, will be relocating to the Mine of Mantaban and will be changing her name to the Infusionist. Here, she'll be taking over the infusion role of the obelisks. The Lost and Found quest will also be changed slightly to help with unlocking infusion through the Infusionist. It's not mentioned whether the Infusionist will be charging for her services. Infusion is currently free, but we'll need to see. This is formerly the Enchantress we're talking about here, so I wouldn't be surprised if she turns this into her latest personal gold farm. Perhaps the most important part of all of this is that her cat seems to be moving to the Mine of Mantaban as well, so fortunately we can still pet her cat while she rips us off. Next up are a few smaller changes to various aspects of the game, which will be impacted directly by this update. First up, crime den raids will be changing slightly, as the combat levels of the criminals in the dens won't be able to directly match the level of a crime den anymore. A level 18 enemy for a level 18 crime den wouldn't work very well anymore by the time you reach Chronopolis. The solution Fen is providing is that the level of the criminals in a den will be set to the level of the den plus the level of the lowest level enemy in Chronopolis. Because this level will be part of your personalized stripe, the level of the enemy in the crime den will also be personalized by extent. Next up, several of the enemies in the Mine of Mantaban drop various potion reagents. The tiers of these reagents scales directly with the tiers of the enemies. The new striping system will disrupt this to the point where higher tier reagents would suddenly require a significantly higher combat level before they start dropping. To prevent this, all tiers of the reagents will become droppable by the base variant of enemies in the Mine of Mantaban. To ensure all of it makes sense, certain items will also be re-themed and seem to be moving to different episodes. For example, it looks like the Brambolith Thorns will become a new reagent and drops for Bramboliths in Hope Forest, and Spectral Hair will become a new reagent and drop for Spectral Stalkers in Chronopolis. Similarly to potion reagents, certain leather offcuts are currently only dropped by enemies in Chronopolis. The changes which will be made here are very straightforward. All tiers of brown leather offcuts will be dropped by 4 different enemies in Chronopolis, presumably at 4 different combat levels, and all tiers of black leather offcuts will become exclusively obtainable through the merchant profession. A few of the passive training methods for merchant will see slight adjustments as a result. Combat profession capes will also be changing. The current designs will be reused for new episode capes. These capes will become unlockable by reaching a certain level in every profession in the episode. So for the level 50 Hopeport cape, you would need 50 Fisher, Chef, Forager, and Alchemist. Combat will not be included in these requirements. It's currently unclear whether the new episode capes will be a straight carbon copy of the current combat profession capes, or if they will be changing slightly in design. If you currently own any of the capes for either Guard, Scout, Minefighter, or Watch Person, then you can kiss them goodbye, because you'll be getting a full refund for the purchase price for these capes when the update comes out. These capes will simply no longer exist. They won't be discontinued though, so tough luck if you were hoping for that. Combat will be getting its own set of capes, and quite a lot of them it looks like. There will be 4 combat capes as normal, at levels 50, 100, 200, and 500. But there will also be another cape every 125 levels after that, it looks like. Fen says they'll be introducing combat level capes for level 50, 100, 200, 500, 625, 750, 875, 1000, 1125, 1250, 1375, 1500, 1625, 1750, 1875, and 2000. I'm curious as to how these designs will work, as I can't see them only getting longer. Otherwise, the level 2000 combat cape could cause someone else to trip over it in the next room over. That doesn't seem very practical. If you're wondering what your combat level will be after this update, if you are already currently a player, your guess is as good as mine. Fen has stated that our combat level won't be a direct sum of our current combat professions, as certain levels are slower to get than others. Currently, the time per level multiplies by 4 once you reach level 20, and again when you reach level 200. Fen is saying they will be calculating your new combat level based on your current levels in the 4 combat professions. The formula they will be using has not been shared as of yet, so we can't make any accurate predictions. Because your combat level will be changing, your total level will also be changing, so bear that in mind. Your combat level will also not contribute to your episode level, as there won't be a direct combat profession per episode anymore. This means that your episode levels will also be slightly lower after the update. All of this does naturally have some effect on the leaderboards. Fen will be introducing so-called legacy leaderboards for the existing episodical combat professions. These will never change and will be, in their words, a little bit of Brighter Shore's history. So your position on the episodic combat profession leaderboard will be immortalized on these legacy leaderboards when the update comes out. The changes to episode levels will also have an impact on the respective episode leaderboards. These will also be updating to no longer factor in combat. Fen has stated that if you are maxed out in all professions in an episode when the update hits, you'll maintain your ranking and you will still be maxed out on the leaderboard after the update. So no need to worry if you're one of the 3 people at the time of writing who this applies to. As for the upgrade trees as proposed in the previous blog post, they remain largely the same. Fen has not currently elaborated on how these will work precisely without the obelisk levels they initially proposed, but I imagine they will do so not too long from now. What is changing though is the way they will be rolled out. The combat rework will be fragmented into 2 different phases. Everything I mentioned in this video, except for the upgrade trees, will be making its way into the live game in one big update, which will be Phase 1. Upgrade trees will then be added at a later point as a second phase. According to the blog post, Fen has not currently started work on the upgrade trees as of yet, and they're not intending to start working on them until Phase 1 has been released. That covers everything Fen Research has given us in their latest blog post. Personally, I'm very excited for this update. While it has definitely been a curveball for Fen's roadmap to go from early access to full release in 6 months, I think it has been a necessary evil. I would much rather see Fen spend 3 months now to fix combat for us now that there's only 4 episodes and it's relatively convenient to do so, than see them rush a full release and take 6 months down the line to do this same update when there are 5, 6, or even more episodes in the game. I also think Fen is being incredible with their communication on this update, and I really feel like we have a good idea of the direction they're trying to go in. And I personally am nothing but pleased to see they are taking their time with it and making sure we get the quality we deserve as a player base. Anyway, this video has been long enough. If you want to discuss this update with me, or almost 200 other people, check out the link in the description to join the Discord server for my clan, the Blades of Adothria. If you enjoyed the video, please make sure to give it a like, it really helps. If you want to be notified for my next upload, make sure you subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon. That way, you'll be among the first to see my videos when I release them. With all that out of the way, I just want to say, thank you so much for watching, and see you in Adothria. Bye!